Imagine a tropical paradise, built by the world's most brutal dictatorship, promising luxury and freedom, where vacationers can sip cocktails under constant surveillance.
원산-칼마 해안 관광지구이 끝없이 넘쳐나고 있습니다.
Welcome to the Wonsan-Kalma coastal tourist area, a newly built beach resort city in the Hermit Kingdom, North Korea. Kim Jong Un envisioned this as a world-class coastal tourist city with modern and luxury hotels, restaurants, malls, and even a water park lining a 2.5-mile stretch of sandy beach. It was supposed to be North Korea's answer to a luxury tropical resort when Pyongyang meets Miami Beach, and a centerpiece of Kim's plan to boost tourism. The irony? After finally opening the massive complex in July 2025, North Korea promptly banned foreign tourists, except friendly Russians, from entering it.
Возможность, и как только появилась в прессе новость, что первая группа туристов из...
This newly minted paradise was hailed by Kim as one of the greatest successes this year. Yet within weeks, the regime decided that no outsiders were allowed to see it. This is Wonsan-Kalma, where reality and propaganda collide on the hot sand. In this video, we'll explore how this communist beach resort came to be, the bizarre grand opening that left Kim Jong Un in tears, and why this ambitious project risks becoming the world's emptiest vacation wonderland. To understand why North Korea built a mega beach resort, we need to rewind a bit. When Kim Jong Un took power in the 2010s, he inherited a sanctioned economy, desperately short on ways to earn foreign cash. Exports were choked by sanctions, especially after his nuclear tests. Traditional trade was minimal, but tourism was not off limits under those sanctions. Kim also had seen some success with the Mount Kumgang tourist zone, a joint venture with South Korea in earlier years, which gave the regime a taste of hard currency from visitors. So, unlike missiles and minerals, beach holidays and ski trips became an unlikely economic lifeline for Pyongyang. In 2014, Kim even founded a Pyongyang Tourism University to train people for an expected tourism boom. Kim's strategy was clear: make North Korea a niche tourist destination for those curious or crazy enough to visit the Hermit Kingdom, and rake in foreign currency in return. In 2014, the government laid out plans for multiple new tourist areas, with Kim explicitly ordering the development of places like Wonsan on the east coast and Samjeon, Chilbo in the north. A decree in June 2014 established the Wonsan Mount Kumgang International Tourist Zone, a huge 430 square kilometer area encompassing Wonsan City, nearby ski resorts Masikyeong, and scenic Mount Kumgang. The vision was to turn Wonsan, a port city where Kim spent his childhood summers and where many elite cadres have villas, into a tourism hub, even though Wonsan was previously better known as a missile test launch site than a holiday spot.
North Korea's launch of a Musudan ballistic missile in June took place at an airport in the city of Wonsan. The U.S.-based North Korean monitoring website 38 North said that based on ground photos and satellite imagery, the test site was located in the eastern part of Kalma.
Pyongyang even courted foreign investors for Wonsan. In May 2015, North Korea held an international investment briefing at Mount Kumgang, inviting over 130 business people from China, Japan, the UK, Canada, New Zealand, Sweden and beyond. Officials touted Wonsan's potential and reportedly signed some tentative agreements.
For North Korea, this is a first. A leisure boat full of Chinese tourists departs the port of Rason, bound for scenic Mount Kumgang.
But those deals didn't translate into real money. By early 2017, nearly 2 years after the investor conference, satellite images showed only a few half-built high-rises and some beach bungalows at the Wonsan site. In other words, progress was glacial. Building a world-class resort requires piles of cash and materials, which North Korea lacked. The regime was juggling multiple projects, renovating the old Kumgang resort, building roads, a new ski slope, etc., and simply couldn't afford to do it all at once. Sanctions tightened after North Korea's nuclear tests in 2016 and 2017, slashing its GDP by an estimated 3.5% in 2017. A massive flood in 2016 hit the northeast hard. In short, Pyongyang's economy was on life support, and even maintaining existing sites was difficult.
재난적인 강수량이 기록되고 발생하여 적지 않은 시군들을 휩쓸었습니다.
Forget building a world-class city. By 2017, they were lucky if Wonsan's construction didn't stall completely. Yet, Kim Jong Un was dead serious about his tourism gamble.
완전한 비핵화로 나가려는 것은 우리 당과 공화국 정부의 불변한 입장이며 나의 확고한 의지.
In his 2018 New Year speech, amidst tentative diplomatic overtures, Kim issued a bold directive. Finish the Wonsan-Kalma beach resort in the shortest time and make it a priority for the year. He listed it as the #1 construction task for 2018, even ahead of major power stations and other prestige projects. That same speech is where Kim famously called the Wonsan resort a Millennium project and a monumental creation for the era. This was not going to be just another beach. It was to be a legacy project that he could tout for generations. With that decree, the full weight of the state was thrown behind Wonsan-Kalma. Factories were reportedly ordered to prioritize materials for the resort. The premier at the time, Park Pong-ju, personally inspected the site multiple times in early 2018 to ensure everything was on track. Kim himself travelled to Wonsan in May 2018 and gloated that bigger miracles would be achieved there, even boasting that the rapid construction of Pyongyang's Ryomyong Street now seemed like a distant memory compared to what they do at Wonsan. Once Kim made Wonsan the project of the year, activity did ramp up. By mid-2018, over 100 buildings were under construction along the Kalma coast, including at least 40 multi-storey structures, as a flurry of construction began. The initial plan was wildly ambitious: complete the entire Wonsan-Kalma tourist complex by April 15, 2019, which is the Sunday, aka Kim Il-sung's birthday, as a grand gift to the nation. In propaganda, they called it a speed battle to build a seaside paradise from scratch in just over a year. Spoiler alert, that didn't happen. By late 2018, it became obvious the economy was still stuck in the mud, and the construction was behind schedule. Kim visited the site again and, in a rare display of patience, extended the deadline by 6 months. The opening was pushed from April 2019 to October 10th, 2019, Party Foundation Day. It was still labelled a 2019 gift project, just gifting to a different holiday.
정말 아름답고 장쾌한 풍경이다. 한 폭의 그림과도 같은 만족을 표시하셨습니다.
North Korea watchers were stunned. Kim Jong Un is not known for tolerance of delays, yet here he was, calmly granting more time. Clearly, Wonsan mattered to him enough to forgive failure.
확대해 나가며 이를 위하여 지휘 성원들이 보다 높은 요구성을 제기하고.
And fail they did. Again, as 2019 wore on, it was clear even the October deadline would be missed. During his 4th visit to the construction site in April 2019, Kim once more announced a postponement. He told the builders to forget the October target and take another 6 months, aiming for April 2020 completion. Quality was paramount, he insisted. A large construction project like this cannot be done sloppily or rushed. Don't just speed race to meet party day, ensure every building is top-notch, he instructed, effectively pardoning the delays and prioritising doing it right. For context, around the same time, Kim was scolding other delayed projects mercilessly. He even raged at the crew building a new Pyongyang General Hospital.
He reportedly scolded the workers in charge of construction for increasing the cost burden on the citizens.
When it fell behind schedule, demoting the person in charge. But at Wonsan, Kim was all smiles and encouragement. This contrast speaks volumes. The beach resort was his pet project, and he knew the challenges were huge, and huge they were.
The North Korean leader scolded the team for burdening its people by encouraging all kinds of assistance. Experts say such criticism by Kim Jong Un could signal that North Korea is experiencing economic
By winter
hardship.
2019, the Wonsan site had practically become a military operation in itself. North Korean sources claimed that through the bitter, cold months, tens of thousands of workers swarmed the coastline to keep building. It's said over 100,000 people, mainly Korean People's Army soldiers, plus some 20,000 youth volunteers, toiled day and night on the frozen sand, lacking heavy machinery, using sheer muscle to pour concrete and lay bricks. Imagine an army of shovel-wielding soldiers on a beach in sub-zero weather, trying to build hotels by hand. It sounds like a surreal socialist parody of a Club Med construction crew. Kim praised them as heroes who created a world-class construction miracle in winter. Even so, reality and physics set limits. By late 2019, Wonsan-Kalma was still unfinished. Frankly, even if they had somehow met the October 2019 deadline, the resort would have been largely non-functional, an empty shell of buildings without proper fittings or amenities. And opening a beach resort as winter sets in is not exactly ideal either. Kim's decision to push to April 2020 was practical. Why debut a beach in October chill? Better to take the winter to finish up and launch in spring. Interestingly, throughout 2019, North Korea was heavily promoting tourism in other ways. They granted unprecedented access to foreign travel vloggers and YouTubers to film segments in the country, trying to shed the hermit kingdom image and drum up interest in visiting.
I can't believe I'm actually doing this, but I'm going to North Korea.
They also completed other tourist projects. Samjeon, a model city near Mount Paektu, was upgraded, and the Yeongdeok Hot Springs Resort was finished, adding a spa retreat to go with the existing Masikyeong ski resort. By end of 2019, North Korea had a decent little suite of tourist attractions. Revolutionary mountain vistas, a ski resort, a hot spring resort, and soon a beach resort, covering all seasons. The efforts seemed to pay off. 2019 was a record year for North Korean tourism. Roughly 350,000 foreign tourists visited, up from about 100,000 in 2014, an almost fourfold jump. Over 90% of these visitors were Chinese, typically older group tourists. But still, it brought in an estimated $175 million of much-needed revenue. With new attractions coming online, officials expected 2020 to be even bigger for tourism. Wonsan-Kalma was supposed to be the jewel of that year, finally opening its doors to throngs of beach-loving travelers. And then, a wild pandemic appeared. In January 2020, just weeks before the planned grand opening, COVID-19 slammed those doors shut. North Korea reacted to the global pandemic with extreme paranoia. It sealed its borders completely by early 2020, essentially cancelling all tourism overnight. Kim Jong Un, realizing his country's threadbare health system couldn't handle an outbreak, chose to choke off travel entirely. This no-COVID blockade protected the population's health, but it also wrecked the economy. Trade with China plummeted, and the budding tourism industry went to zero. Not a single foreign tourist, meaning not one dime of hard currency from tourism for over 3 years.
North Korea's first official COVID-19 outbreak is rapidly shifting, raising grave concerns for the country's healthcare capabilities. But also,
in this situation, pouring resources into completing a luxury beach resort for imaginary tourists made no sense. So, Wonsan-Kalma was mothballed. April 2020 came and went with no fanfare. The planned opening ceremony on Kim Il-sung's birthday was quietly abandoned. For the next 4 years, the Wonsan construction site basically froze in time. Occasionally, state media would drop a line about it just to remind people it existed, but the project was essentially on life support, awaiting the day North Korea could reopen to visitors. That day finally began to dawn in late 2023. As the pandemic ebbed, Pyongyang cautiously started re-engaging with the world. In August 2023, they resumed some diplomatic exchanges, and by September they allowed the first foreign delegations and select individuals to enter under strict conditions.
인민들의 생명 건강을 보호하기 위한 최대 비상 방역전에서의 승리를 쟁취하였음을 선포합니다.
In early 2024, North Korea officially reopened its land borders for limited traffic, including letting in a small group of Russian tourists, a clear signal that tourism was back on the agenda. With that, the dormant cranes at Wonsan roared to life again. Construction crews, likely many of the same long-suffering soldiers, were sent back to Kalma to finish what they started. Kim Jong Un paid a sudden visit to Wonsan-Kalma in July 2024, his first in years, and gave the order to wrap it up. State media announced that the final stage of work was underway and that the resort would be ready by May 2025. Essentially, after an 11-year journey, the finish line was in sight.
뛰어난 경관으로 널리 알려진 각양각태의 현대미를 발산하는 수백 동의 건물들이 우리식의 해안 관광 도시입니다.
Fast forward to June 2025. North Korea declared that its Millennium project was finally complete. They held a grand completion ceremony for the Wonsan-Kalma coastal tourist zone. It had taken 6 extra years beyond the original 2019 deadline, but in North Korean style, they spun the delay positively. Good things are worth waiting for, etc. Kim Jong Un, on site to inaugurate his dream resort, was reportedly extremely pleased. The more I look at it, the more beautiful it is. Like a picture, he gushed, admiring the panorama of new beachfront high-rises and promenades. He praised the breathtaking scenery and claimed the resort city was world-class, flawless in its debut. One can imagine the relief on his part. After so many delays and doubts, Wonsan was finally a reality. And what an opening it was. North Korea pulled out all the stops to make the completion ceremony memorable and subtly messaged the resort's purpose. For starters, Kim Jong Un made a dramatic entrance. Instead of arriving by his trademark armored train, he sailed in on a luxury yacht. Yes, the supreme leader cruised into Wonsan like a billionaire arriving at his private island. This was intentional theatre, highlighting the coastal leisure theme of the project. Kim, who usually projects a military or statesman image, wanted to show he can do vacation chic too. Alongside him, for the first time in a year and a half, appeared his entire immediate family. His wife, Ri Sol-ju, who had been notably absent from public view for quite a while, showed up in a smart casual outfit, complete with her beloved Gucci handbag on her arm. The young daughter, Kim Ju-ae, also joined them, making the event a rare public family outing. Observers even speculated Ri Sol-ju's long disappearance might have been due to a pregnancy, but that's another story. The key point, Kim wanted the optics of a leader enjoying a family vacation by the sea, as if to say, see, even we relax and have fun. North Korea has leisure now. North Korean children enjoying the beach at the newly opened Wonsan-Kalma resort. State media eagerly reported scenes of jubilant locals at the seaside, claiming everyone was vying to take commemorative photos.
So, yesterday, I was happy at this age at the hash, but today, I came to this electronic entertainment and went to the movie theater.
And expressing the joy and romance of being the first to enjoy this new coastal paradise. According to the propaganda, the beach was bustling with life. People were so happy with the new civilized life provided by the party that they couldn't sleep all night, and the night sky of Kalma was aglow with hope for a new day. It was a lavish narrative of utopian leisure. Essentially, our benevolent leader built us a world-class resort and the people are ecstatically grateful. Of course, reality was a bit different, as we'll see. The ceremony itself was designed to emphasize fun and relaxation. They even organized an exhibition of water sports and entertainment on site. According to footage later shown on TV, a new water park at the resort was christened with a show featuring jet ski stunts, water slides and performers engaging in aquatic games. Not everything went smoothly. Many performers hilariously wiped out and went tumbling into the water during the show, but that only made Kim laugh harder. The cameras captured him and his top officials grinning and clapping as they watched people flail off inflatables into the pool. The whole vibe was unusually light-hearted for a North Korean state event. The message, this is a place of joy. Not just ideologically correct tourism, but genuine fun. Kim Jong Un even appeared teary-eyed at one point. State media showed him with moist eyes at the evening gala, overcome with emotion. He would again shed tears a few days later at a separate event with a Russian cultural delegation, perhaps part of a new effort to present himself as a caring, humane leader, rather than the stoic deity of past propaganda. It's both ironic and poignant to see a man who runs brutal prison camps crying over a water park. But this is the image Pyongyang wanted to project, Kim as the proud father of a prospering nation, providing happiness to his people. Beyond the feel-good theatrics, the guest list and stage arrangement at the ceremony carried deeper significance. On the viewing platform, officials were seated in tiers. The very top tier, of course, was Kim and his family, centre stage. Flanking them were two groups. On one side, the top economic officials, and on the other side, senior party secretaries in charge of organisation and ideology. This combination, economy and party bigwigs, is standard for showcasing a major economic achievement. However, there was one unusual figure on stage, Foreign Minister Choi Son-hui. It is not common for the Foreign Minister to preside over a domestic construction ribbon cutting. Her presence was a deliberate signal. As analysts noted, it telegraphed that Wonsan-Kalma isn't just a local leisure site, but a key piece of North Korea's international engagement strategy. In other words, this resort is meant to host and woo foreign guests and their wallets. By placing the foreign minister in the VIP section, Pyongyang was saying, this project is tightly linked to our foreign relations and tourism diplomacy. They expect it to become a major venue for hosting outsiders and a conduit for international revenue. And speaking of foreign dignitaries, guess who got the special guest honour at the grand opening?
나라 사이의 포괄적인 전략적 동반자관의 거폭적인 진전을 가속화하는 데서 당면하게 나서는 실질 조항들을 성실히
Russia. On Kim's invitation, the Russian ambassador in Pyongyang, Alexander Matagora, attended with a large entourage of Russian embassy staff. In fact, it appears the entire Russian diplomatic mission in North Korea, minus a skeleton crew back in Pyongyang, decamped to Wonsan for this event. They were the only foreigners present. No other countries' envoys were invited to this international tourist city unveiling. This speaks volumes about where North Korea sees its current friends. Moscow front and centre, Beijing curiously absent. Kim Jong Un treated Ambassador Matagora almost like a VIP tourist-in-chief, personally hugging the envoy during the resort tour and showing him around the facilities. Such chumminess is rare in public. It underscores that Russia has a special status, especially amid the Ukraine war alignment. The subtext, Wonsan is open for Russian business first. Given Russia and North Korea's tightening ties, Kim was effectively saying spasibo by giving the Russians first crack at his new resort. One North Korean commentary even noted that the Russian ambassador's team would likely become regulars at Wonsan-Kalma from now on. After all, North Korea never really had a swanky beach getaway to entertain foreign diplomats until now. Come for the sunshine, stay for the geopolitical alliance. After the grand ribbon cutting, Wonsan-Kalma officially opened for business on July 1, 2025, at least for North Korean citizens.
찾아오는 수많은 근로자들로 연일 흥성이고 있습니다.
State media proudly announced that from that day, the resort would formally begin receiving visitors. Kim Jong Un, they proclaimed, had built this beautiful, luxurious people's recreational resort, a world-class tourist park, so that our people can fully enjoy a maritime holiday culture envied by the world, and that this world-class scenic spot sings the praises of Kim's leadership as it opens. Glowing words indeed. But who were these first lucky vacationers?
내 나이 80이 되옵니다. 이제 해수욕을 하고 나오니까 정말 3-4대 청춘으로.
Not average citizens casually booking a beach holiday, that's for sure. The North Korean press was coy about the details, simply saying tourists from various provinces showed up. In reality, the first batch of domestic visitors was handpicked by the government. According to later reports, they fell into two main groups. Group 1, labouring masses from Gangwon province, where Wonsan is, and neighbouring South Hamgyong province. These were likely model workers, for example, outstanding construction crew members who built the resort, exemplary factory workers, etc., rewarded with a trip. Essentially, Employee of the Month winners on a state-paid vacation. Group 2, citizens from Pyongyang and several other provinces, North Hamgyong, Ryanggang, Chagang, etc., who were probably those who qualified for some kind of workplace retreat or health recuperation trip. In North Korea, workplaces occasionally send high-performing employees to limited holiday centres as a perk. It appears the authorities allocated some of these slots to Wonsan's opening week. Some specific individuals even got named in local news. For instance, a coal mine team leader from Tokchon and his crew, a construction brigade chief from Pyongyang, etc., were mentioned as part of the crowd. In short, these were not freewheeling tourists who decided to try out the new resort. They were invited guests on state-organised tours. Nobody paid out of pocket. This was essentially a propaganda exhibit masquerading as a vacation. One North Korean miner was quoted expressing gratitude, saying that experiencing such a wonderful system, the socialist paradise that let him lounge at the beach, made him vow to work even harder when he returned to the mines. Now there's a TripAdvisor review you won't see every day. Beautiful beach, 10 out of 10, will increase coal output for dear leader after visit. It's darkly comic. Instead of tourism being an escape from work, here it's motivation to do more work for the regime. Also notable, while various civilian workers got a brief taste of sun and surf, the actual Korean People's Army soldiers who did the lion's share of construction did not appear to get any vacation at all out of it. The grunts who froze through winter building Kim's dream resort seemingly went straight on to the next assignment, while others soaked up the rays. So much for military-first policy. When it comes to leisure, the soldiers are back of the line. For a few days in early July 2025, Wonsan-Kalma did see some cheerful domestic activity. North Korean media showed photos of kids splashing in the surf, women in modest swimwear wading in the water, and men in ball caps and t-shirts strolling the new boardwalk. All under the watchful eye of giant portraits of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong Un. Can't forget to bring your eternal leaders to the beach. A fireworks show and nighttime concerts were also laid on to entertain the guests, giving the impression of a lively new holiday destination. But once those initial state-sponsored groups packed up and went home, Who was going to come next? This resort wasn't built just for a one-week PR stunt. The real measure of success would be attracting a steady stream of paying tourists, especially foreign tourists with hard currency. And that is where things get weird.
Staying in Russia, the first North Korean travel agency has opened up in Moscow with hopes of wooing Russian tourists to the reclusive state. Pyongyang is
Even before Wonsan opened domestically, North Korea was making quiet moves to bring in foreign tour groups again. In fact, they decided to start with a close ally, Russia. With China still cautious and Chinese group tours not yet resumed, Pyongyang turned to the Russians to test the waters. On July 11, 2025, the first foreign tour group arrived at Wonsan-Kalma. After visiting Pyongyang's sites, these 15 Russians were hosted in Wonsan as the resort's inaugural foreign guests. According to one of them, a woman named Nina Svirida, the resort was magnificent, everything is new, clean and stunning, she was quoted as saying in rosy terms. It's not clear if Nina and friends were seasoned North Korea fans or just adventurous travelers, but they got a hero's welcome. North Korean media didn't trumpet their visit widely, since officially the resort was not open to foreigners yet, but behind the scenes this was an important trial run. Then came a very high-profile visitor, Sergei Lavrov, Russia's foreign minister, one of the most influential figures to visit North Korea in recent years. In mid-July 2025, Lavrov flew into North Korea for talks, and interestingly, he did not meet Kim Jong Un in the capital. Instead, Kim invited Lavrov to join him at Wonsan-Kalma. On July 12th, the two met on Kim's personal yacht just off the resort's shore. Try to imagine it, the Kremlin's top diplomat lounging on a boat with Kim, perhaps sipping a beverage, with North Korea's shiny new beach skyline in the background. This was diplomatic theater tailored for Wonsan's launch. Kim reportedly told Lavrov that he chose Wonsan for their meeting so that Lavrov, who's a busy man dealing with war and sanctions, could rest a little and enjoy himself. And, Kim added with a grin, "You are now our resort's very first guest." Lavrov, an old fox, didn't miss a beat. He politely pointed out that Ambassador Matsugora had technically been the first foreign visitor, having attended the opening, so credit to him. But Lavrov certainly appreciated the gesture. Of course, Kim's hospitality had an agenda. He wanted Russia's help to make Wonsan a success.
Since coming to power, the Swiss-educated Kim Jong Un has sought to use tourism to attract much-needed foreign currency.
The North Koreans were likely hoping Lavrov would go back to Moscow and encourage Russian tour operators or charter flights to Wonsan. Lavrov obliged in spirit. During a meeting with North Korea's Foreign Minister Ms. Che that weekend, Lavrov said exactly what Kim wanted to hear. "I am sure Russian tourists will be increasingly eager to come here," he said, and promised to do everything to make it happen, including working on air travel. In other words, Russia might help set up direct flights, or at least facilitate visas and promotions for North Korea's new resort. This was music to Kim's ears. Wonsan-Kalma needed foreign guests desperately, and if China was not yet sending group tours, Russia was the next best bet. However, along with Lavrov's delegation came something North Korea didn't anticipate: honest reporting. A Russian journalist who travelled with Lavrov to Wonsan wrote a piece in a Moscow newspaper that described what he saw at the resort, and it wasn't exactly the image Pyongyang had painted. The Russian reporter noted that outside of the choreographed tour route, the resort was largely empty. He described deserted beaches with hardly any locals around, and at night the place was practically a ghost town. The only spots with some people, he wrote, were along the fixed path that the minders took the foreigners on, and those people's behaviour struck him as highly unnatural, more like actors than real tourists. They didn't seem to be actually relaxing, they were just there, possibly to create a semblance of activity. In short, he implied that North Korea had staged parts of the resort experience to impress the foreigners, filling some areas with a token crowd while most of the facilities stood unused. This account, a rare candid glimpse, basically said, Wonsan-Kalma is currently a Potemkin village. Shiny infrastructure, but no real customers. This report apparently freaked out the North Korean leadership. The whole point of inviting friendly Russians first was to generate positive buzz, not awkward exposés about fake tourists. Within days of the Russian media story, Kim's government made a sudden about-face. They banned all foreign tourists until further notice. On July 18, 2025, the North Korean Tourism Authority's website quietly posted a notice that the Wonsan-Kalma tourist area is temporarily not receiving foreign tourists. No reason was given, no duration specified, just a terse closure. They had literally just opened the resort with great fanfare and welcomed a tiny handful of foreigners, and now they slammed the door shut. Indeed, Kim had just called Wonsan one of the year's greatest achievements, and now foreigners can't even go there. Why the sudden ban? Analysts have a few theories. The most widely accepted is that North Korea was embarrassed and worried about negative press if more foreigners came and saw the truth. That Russian reporter's article presumably set off alarm bells in Pyongyang. If even a friendly visitor noticed the fakeness, what if more outside tourists talk or post on social media about how empty or staged the resort is? It would undermine the propaganda that Wonsan is a booming success filled with happy holidaymakers. Oh Kyung-sub, an analyst in Seoul, was quoted saying the North Korean government likely judged that opening the site to foreigners would bring negative consequences. Essentially, they feared being caught in lies or showing weakness. Another expert noted the ban probably includes even Russians now, despite Lavrov's efforts, though tour companies speculated Pyongyang might still quietly allow Russians while blocking Westerners. A second possible factor is pride and face-saving. Kim had paraded Wonsan as a signature accomplishment. To have foreigners visit and then gossip that it's a dud would bruise the regime's ego.
North Korea has always been on my list, so I couldn't say no. Let's go. First, they took my passport to make sure I wouldn't
So
run away
rather
from
than
the
risk
group.
more outsider eyes right away, they decided to regroup and control the narrative.
A third factor could be practical difficulties. North Korea is far, trips are expensive, and Russians have cheaper beach options closer to home. So maybe the demand wasn't high yet and they figured it's better to pause than have a trickle of foreigners come and be disappointed by emptiness. Additionally, North Korea may have realised they weren't fully ready service-wise. If early foreign visitors went home unimpressed due to untrained staff or unfinished facilities, that could also hurt future prospects. Better to hold off until they can actually provide a halfway decent tourist experience. Whatever the mix of reasons, the ban is likely temporary. As one observer quipped, they have to open Wonsan to foreigners sooner or later because without foreign cash, Russian rubles, Chinese yuan, US dollars, the resort will never break even and would have to shut down. In essence, Kim Jong Un has built a very expensive beast that must feed on tourists to survive.
우리 당의 인민대중제일주의 정치, 이민위촌의 우리식 사회주의 제도가 받들어 올린 동해의 국보급 관광.
So, where does that leave the Wonsan-Kalma resort now? On paper, it is an impressive complex. North Korean media claims the resort city can accommodate 20,000 guests at a time, an enormous capacity that rivals large beach resorts anywhere. It boasts an array of facilities, supposedly 43 hotels of varying sizes, dozens of villas, 35 restaurants, 29 shops from boutiques to souvenir stands, a large water park, an amusement park area, a marina for water sports, camping grounds, and various entertainment and service centres. In propaganda renderings, it looks like a North Korean Las Vegas by the sea, neon-lit high-rise hotels lining a curved beach filled with every attraction one could imagine. Of course, a crucial phrase is state media claims. Independent observers can't verify many of these amenities yet. Outside reporting and satellite imagery indicate that while the exteriors of Wonsan-Kalma's hundreds of buildings are largely complete, painted, lit up, landscaping done, many of the interiors are unfinished or not operational. That English language tourist guide that North Korea published for Wonsan, intended for future foreign visitors, has a resort map showing all the buildings and their labels, and interestingly, 11 of the largest buildings have no labels at all, meaning their purpose isn't identified. These are likely intended to be big hotels or venues that simply aren't ready yet. Analysts noted that as of mid-2025, only 6 major hotels were actually open and receiving guests. The rest of the accommodations listed were either small inns with just a few dozen rooms each, or completely unopened towers. In short, Wonsan-Kalma isn't 100% finished. It's maybe 80% finish on the outside, 50% on the inside. North Korea essentially built a skeleton of a resort city and will furnish the insides gradually. And that actually makes sense from their perspective. Why pour money into fully outfitting 40+ hotels and hundreds of shops if there are no tourists to fill them yet? Instead, they've opened a handful of hotels and facilities that are sufficient to handle the small trickle of visitors they expect initially. The rest can be completed later, in phases, as demand grows, or so they hope. It's a pragmatic strategy given their resource constraints. Besides, they lack trained personnel to operate everything right now. Hospitality staffing is a real Achilles heel. You can build a fancy hotel, but do you have chefs, cleaners, lifeguards, concierges, English-speaking guides, etc. in the hundreds to run a whole resort city? North Korea's never had something of this scale, so they need time to train staff and develop software to match the hardware. Kim Jong Un even mentioned this during one of his inspections. He cautioned officials that no matter how high-end the facilities, if service quality doesn't keep up, the resort's value would plummet. He urged them to analyse service capacity and select operating teams carefully to start training them well before the grand opening. In other words, he knew they weren't ready to open 40 hotels at once. So what we have now is effectively a soft launch or pilot operation of Wonsan-Kalma. A few hotels, a few restaurants, a small number of guests, basically a testing phase to work out kinks. The downside of that, of course, is that when a foreign reporter comes, they see a mostly empty resort, which doesn't inspire confidence. But Pyongyang seems willing to absorb a bit of awkwardness now in exchange for a smoother full opening later.
КНДР в Вонсане мало что напоминает, если только туристов не слишком много, что обычно бывает на курортах. В любом случае все только.
By 2026, if all goes to plan, Wonsan-Kalma might be fully up and running, with many more hotels and amenities active. 2025, however, is a building year, both literally finishing construction and figuratively rebuilding the flow of tourists post-pandemic. Let's talk tourists, the lifeblood of this venture. Who will come and how many do they need? Before COVID, we noted approximately 350,000 foreign visitors came in 2019, almost all Chinese. North Korea's optimistic projections likely assume they can surpass that in the near future, perhaps 500,000 or more tourists annually if things really get going. Some internal analyses even dream of 600,000, 1 million foreign tourists per year, eventually, though the higher end seems far-fetched without significant changes. To illustrate, if every hotel bed in Wonsan was filled year-round, which is impossible in the winter, that alone would be over 7 million visitor nights. Realistically, no more than a few 100,000 foreigners total might visit North Korea per year, even in a best-case scenario. One informed estimate suggests that if North Korea fully reopened and actively promoted tourism, they might attract 600 to 800,000 tourists a year at peak, mostly Chinese, but even that is optimistic. The country itself might not want too many Western tourists roaming around for security reasons, and Chinese tourism has a natural ceiling based on interest and capacity.
В стране утренней свежести с размахом отметили День сияющей звезды, то есть юбилей великого руководителя Ким Чен Ира, сына вечного президента.
Let's run a rosy scenario anyway. Say, by a few years from now, 400,000 foreign tourists visit in a year. Perhaps 85% of them are Chinese on relatively budget group tours, and 15% are from West on pricey packages. The Chinese tourists might spend around $900 each on a standard 5-day North Korea trip, which is not cheap but within reason for a niche vacation. Western tourists, coming from farther away for longer trips, might spend $2,500 to $3,000 each for a week or more. This aligns with what Russian tour companies have advertised, about 15 million rubles, $2,000 for an 8-day tour, including Wonsan, plus extra spending money. If we wait that out, you get roughly $420 million revenue potential per year. North Korean sources themselves floated numbers in this ballpark. That Wonsan-related tourism could bring in over $400 million annually in the most optimistic scenario. This would indeed make it one of North Korea's top earners. Even a more moderate scenario, say 300,000 tourists at an average of $1,000 each, would net $300 million. No wonder they call it a golden goose and a plan for the ages. The regime sees tourism as a cash cow that's sanction-proof. However, reality often laughs at planners. As of late 2025 now, actual foreign tourist numbers are minuscule. North Korea only just started letting in a trickle of foreigners. For instance, in February 2025, they opened up the Rason Special Economic Zone for a trial run of foreign tour groups. A few dozen Western tourists visited on closely guided trips. But that program was halted after just a few weeks due to unspecified reasons. Pyongyang itself remains closed to regular foreign tour groups except from Russia. After 3+ years of zero tourism, the infrastructure needs ramping up and staff retraining. North Korean tour guides themselves expressed anxiety that they were out of practice and nervous about their foreign language skills after so long without tourists. The rust is real. But signs point to a bigger reopening on the horizon. By mid-2025, as relations with Beijing improved, there was talk of resuming Chinese group tours. In fact, in July 2025, Japanese media NHK reported that the Beijing-Pyongyang international train, suspended since 2020, would restart service in August. The train K2728 is the primary way large numbers of Chinese tourists used to enter North Korea. Its revival strongly hints that North Korea is preparing to welcome back Chinese tour groups en masse, likely in late 2025 or 2026. A Chinese travel agency was already taking bookings for group tours to Rason and hinting at more destinations as of early 2025. So while Wonsan might be off limits to foreigners for the moment, it's probably a temporary tactical retreat. We can expect that by the next spring or summer, North Korea will quietly invite select foreign tour groups, first maybe Russians, then some Chinese pioneer groups, then eventually regular Chinese package tours to Wonsan-Kalma. It might also align with political events. For instance, North Korea is rumoured to be planning a party congress or major policy meeting where they could announce grand new tourism initiatives. They'll want some success stories by then. It's worth noting domestically, Wonsan-Kalma is also supposed to serve the people, at least on paper. North Korea's propaganda stressed that providing a modern seaside leisure spot for its citizens is a major achievement of the People's Party First policy. They boasted that hotels and resorts for 20,000 people will offer new cultural enjoyment, and that laughter and singing on the beach are symbols of the people's dignity and welfare under Kim's rule. That's lovely rhetoric, but one has to be cynical about how many average North Koreans will ever benefit. If the resort really operates year-round at full capacity for locals, it would imply millions of domestic visits a year, something on the order of 1/10 of North Korea's population needing to take a seaside holiday. In a country where many people struggle to get enough food, the idea of millions going on vacation is far-fetched.
Хотя, конечно, есть нюансы.
Most likely, domestic use of Wonsan will be limited to special trips for privileged or high-performing groups, not open recreation for anyone with a few won to spare. Many North Korean workers never get to go on any state-sponsored vacation in their entire lives. The elite in Pyongyang have some resorts and rest homes, but the ordinary folk rarely have the time or money to travel for fun. So, while Wonsan might host some North Korean families occasionally, especially those of loyal cadres or those rewarded, it's not about to become Coney Island for the masses on the weekends. The regime knows this too. All the talk of era of the people's tourism is part of justifying the huge expense by saying it's for the people. But in truth, if Wonsan can't attract foreigners and their cash, it won't be sustainable even just serving domestic visitors. The maintenance, staff and operating costs of such a giant resort are enormous, well beyond what the government would spend just to give locals a nice time. It has to be monetized internationally.
Очень крутая, классная гора. Она, конечно, не для новичков, 100%. Это для людей, которые уже научились.
In the final analysis, the Wonsan-Kalma beach resort is a grand experiment. Kim Jong Un has staked a lot on this socialist Riviera. It embodies a vision of North Korea that is slightly surreal, water parks and luxury yachts in a country better known for military parades and famine. It's a place where, in propaganda, the entire country celebrates a new era of tourism and hails it as an epochal milestone of progress. The leadership even suggests Wonsan is just the beginning. They claim that from the experience gained here, they will roll out many more large-scale tourist zones in other scenic parts of the country. One can almost hear the planners drafting brochures for Kim Il-sung Beach or Pak-tu Mountain Spa Resort next. North Korea is effectively saying, we're not just about nukes and slogans anymore, we're building Las Vegas meets Disneyland. Trust us, it'll be great. Yet for now, Wonsan-Kalma remains a Potemkin paradise, teetering between ambition and reality. It is a resort with no real tourists, a shiny new city by the sea that, on most days, is probably quieter than a minor provincial town. Its success is far from guaranteed. To truly become the cash engine Kim wants, Wonsan must overcome huge challenges. Convincing foreigners it's worth vacationing under constant surveillance, persuading China to lift curbs on tour groups, maintaining facilities to international standards, and doing all this while avoiding the pitfalls of the regime's own paranoia. Even if they open the floodgates, attracting a significant number of non-Chinese tourists will be tough. The world is full of cheaper, safer, actually fun beaches. North Korea's selling points are novelty, curiosity, and maybe bragging rights of "I vacationed in North Korea." That's a limited market. Chinese tourists might come for a short while out of curiosity or political camaraderie, but will they return regularly? And Western tourists, beyond a niche of adventure travellers, are constrained by things like the US travel ban. Americans can't legally go as tourists since 2017, and general fear, since Otto Warmbier's tragic fate in 2017 still looms large. On the domestic front, if Kim truly wants to show that his people are reaping the benefits, he'll need to allow more than just hand-picked loyalists to sip cocktails on Wonsan's beaches. But doing so risks exposing more North Koreans to mingling with foreigners and seeing inequality up close. It's a delicate balance of opening and control. What's certain is that Wonsan-Kalma is now a permanent fixture on the North Korean landscape, a gleaming, pastel-coloured monument to Kim's aspirations. It's been called North Korea's Dubai, Kim Jong Un's folly, and even the People's Resort in various circles, each name reflecting a different perspective. Will it, in 5 years, be a bustling holiday city with joint North Korean-Chinese beach parties and Russian families building sandcastles? Or will it be an eerie collection of empty hotels, slowly decaying, while propaganda still touts record visitor numbers that never materialise? The answer lies in what happens next as North Korea navigates reopening. For now, one might say Wonsan-Kalma has opened with a splash, but without swimmers. The project showcases both North Korea's imagination and its limitations. Imagination in that they dared to dream of tropical luxury and global tourists in a nation that is one of the most isolated on earth. Limitations in that even the first steps have stumbled on the regime's own secrecy and the world's skepticism. Perhaps one day, if you're feeling particularly adventurous and if your government allows it, you might book a flight to Pyongyang, take a domestic hop to Wonsan's new Kalma airport, and find yourself sipping a cold drink under a beach umbrella on the North Korean Riviera. You might gaze at the oddly empty skyline of brand new hotels, watch a few North Korean families frolic under the watch of attentive guides, and realize you have an entire beach almost to yourself, a private beach experience courtesy of authoritarian overkill. It would be both beautiful and bizarre, equal parts paradise and propaganda. Until then, Wonsan-Kalma remains a grand stage set waiting for its international debut, a North Korean dream deferred, and perhaps the most darkly comedic beach resort on the planet, where the sand is real, the smiles are managed, and the biggest thing making waves is politics. Dear viewers, if you've watched toward the end, congratulations, comrade. You have fulfilled your party's duty. Remember, supreme entertainment requires supreme loyalty. It is your revolutionary duty to subscribe immediately to this glorious channel. Click the sacred red button. Kim Jong Un would definitely approve. Remember, comrades, subscribing ensures eternal happiness and unlimited beach holidays. Refusal will be seen as highly suspicious.